Early childhood educators often work as part of a team. To help foster positive relationships, it's important that staff feel supported in their physical, social and emotional demands of their own work. This includes sharing and managing their feelings about working with young children and both the joys and challenges this can bring on a day-to-day basis. When staff work well together and develop positive working relationships, this helps to reduce the feelings of stress and overload. It also has a positive impact in supporting children's mental health and development.
In any service where you're trying to create a real sense of community, it is about relationships, about positive relationships. And those start with the adults, the educators. So educators working to develop their relationships, educator to educator, and their relationships, educators to family members, and showing respect and working together means that it strengthens that notion of community.
I think one of the things in early childhood settings especially is we tend to work as a team. Like in a sense, you very rarely, I mean, if you're in family daycare, a different situation, but if you're in a centre-based setting, you will generally always be with at least one other person and often more than that. So we do take a sort of team approach to things, and I think it's important.
I think it's important that, you know, consideration is paid to planning and also anticipating what's the next steps, what are we doing with these children and where are we going with the children and families. I think early learning environments play a big part in that. I think it's really, you know, in line with really good practice around program planning for children and portfolio building for children. I think it's really important to look at what role the early years environment plays in thinking about what are the next steps for each of these children individually and what are the next steps for these children in this room together and how's that going with the family. I think educators are experts in early childhood development and early childhood learning, and I think we have a lot to do, or we could have a lot more to do with the influence that we might have in regard to how parents see their children and how communities respond to children too.
I think educators know that the team is doing well when there are conversations going on all the time about how we're travelling, how we're feeling about things. One of the things we do ask early childhood educators to do in the context of quality practice is to be reflective, is to take time to talk to each other about how we are travelling as educators. So it is an opportunity, if you like, to reflect on your own sense of how you are with children and families, but also how the opportunities that you have with families, the encounters that you have on a regular basis, affect your own sense of yourself.
In a service that values relationships, you see people working together in a way that they show they're happy. An educator told me recently that, you know, she's happy if her colleagues are happy and the kids are happy, and that happens in a lot of ways, and it doesn't always look like the smiling faces. It's about having the opportunity to do things that you like to do, that there's flexibility around what happens in this space and this place, so that everyone feels that at any given time they're part of this bigger picture. The other things that you see are conversations that aren't short, conversations that are respectful and a part of what's going on in this place for these children and these adults at this particular time.
And dealing with a child who, because of a mental health problem or some other problem, is displaying very challenging behaviours, with all the best will in the world on our part, is still a really draining thing to do. And so I think that sense of being able to, firstly, almost just have someone you can debrief with, and often that's best if that's a colleague who kind of understands the situation. In some situations it might almost be a formal sort of supervision arrangement where you are talking to someone external who can give you sort of professional support and advice about that. But I think just within a team it's important to have those discussions and conversations, partly just for that sense of support, but also because everyone will see a slightly different facet of the problem.
Often what early childhood workers really need to rely on is the co-workers they're working with, part of the team, They need to think about how they look after themselves and how they get their own downtime and how they refuel, how they recharge. Because there's a lot expected of them. There's a lot of kind of emotional availability they have to bring to their day-to-day job. I mean, most of them love it and they adore it, but also there are circumstances, which change and make things difficult. And when you've got a team of early childhood workers working together, it's one thing that a team does very well. They know how, to kind of mix and match in the way that parents do. Parents sometimes know very well that, at this point, mum or dad's exhausted, I've got to step in. And it's that constant movement that parents, and like early childhood workers, they have to look after themselves. They have to know when they're getting to a point where they're getting, grumpy or exhausted or whatever it is they're getting to. And they have to mix that up in a team of how they look after kids. So that kind of aspect of self-care is very important.
So that's part of the hub. And then when I think of the educators, I think they need to think of themselves as a family. And in good families, you can ask for help without effort. So if you feel you've got too many children with you, you can put up your hand, or if you're not too sure, if you're feeling on the inside like this child's feeling is too big for me, you can put up your hand and ask for help, or you can call across to someone else, so that there's an appreciation within the educators that we all work together and take the load. It's not just carried by one of us.